the Koalition.
Thank you all for coming out on such a chilly night.
Chilly night, but phenomenal film. Congratulations on it. Welcome. Thank you so much for being here. Let's talk from the beginning in terms of what you thought when you read Bill Collage's script and you kind of figured out this character of Fassel Ben, because I would imagine there would be a lot of different ways to go into it. What were some keys to figuring out this character, and what kind of grew you in a lot of ways?
I read the script, thought it was important, entertaining, felt like a Trojan horse. It felt that it had a pace, it had jump scares, but it had something within it that we haven't seen. It was not a trauma film, it was a film about hope. And I wanted nothing to fucking do with it.
What came to your mind? The obviously the power of it as well came around?
It took a minute. I'm
a fan of Antoine Fuqua's, our great director. I've been a fan of Will Smith's for decades, many of us. But in short, we're in long. I had just completed a film called The Survivor, and that was for HBO. And it was about a man who survived the concentration camps and escaped. It's a true story. And I had spent so much time considering this kind of human dehumanization that I just didn't want to think about it. So I get on the call, it's with Antoine, he says, we shoot in a week. I'm like, yeah, well, I'm a prep guy, so that's a no. Love training day, and I believe in what he's doing, and he gave me his pitch, and he said, I want to lift the veil. Well, do it. We hung up understanding that this wasn't going to work. I was already prepping another job, actually, at the time. But his words, I want to unlift the veil, kept me up all night. And I couldn't get those words out of my head, and I started reflecting upon why don't I want to look at this? Be the face of the white devil right now. And within that, I recalled my grandparents, and so I'll just do a quick left, which is my grandparents. My family comes from Eastern Europe. They escaped the pogroms, Ukraine and Romania. My Nana lived with a great love of our country, but also what we call now PTSD when she was still with us, because she would hear the boots of the Nazis storming the floorboards above the neighbor in which she was sleeping under. And they escaped, and they came through Ellis Island. And she loved Lady Liberty to the day she died, most positive woman you ever met. And they then, once she met my grandfather, Martin Luther King month after Selma in Massachusetts, they became civil rights activists. My grandfather, Frank Foster, would picket outside Woolworth's because they wouldn't allow people of color to sit at the table and eat. So that's how I was raised. So playing this role, no. But Antoine's saying, I want to lift the veil, kept me up all night. He said, well, we go in a week, good to meet you, big fan, all that stuff. I'm saying to him, big fan, all that stuff. And it was about July 2nd, something like that. And I read in my spiral that night Frederick Douglass' essay or speech about what does 4th of July mean. does lift the veil mean for the white devil? Now, as written, great script, as I said, I believe I said that. It is a very entertaining script. But as written, it was written as a Fassel. Jim Fassel was a man with a snake skull on his cowboy hat. He had a ruffled shirt. He spoke in a very thick Cajun accent. And there was a lot of what you call aggressive hate speech. And to the point of boogeyman. I mean, it wasn't a human. It was just the devil. Like, how do you lift the veil on that? And then it hit was, what is the devil? It's the guy next door. It's the person who works at the post office. And the concept was very simple. For an actor, I mean, we're looking for doors, we're looking for ways in. It hit, let's put him in the Midwest. Real simple, because not all Southerners are racists. Not all people south of the Mason-Dixon line are racists. And not all people above in the north are civil rights activists. So if that's a door, let's at least put his sound and behavior as plain as could be. A guy who you just expect to see anywhere. And I called up Antoine and I said, you want to lift the veil? Let's make him anybody. And he said, let's go.
Well, that phrase and everything you just described is so powerful in and of itself, but it also makes me think that there's one of the things that's powerful about your performance, and it relates to what you were just saying, is that banality of people. There is a sense to your performance to Fassel that he almost seems bored by the job. It is, it's what he does. He thinks of himself as a god in his role as a slave owner, but he's also to him it's in some ways, if there was a punch clock, he would be doing it, because to him it's sort of it's the day-to-dayness of it, isn't it? And that's something that you see in your performance.
So once Antoine said, let's go, and as actors, you don't come in saying like, oh, I got the role, I totally figured it out. It's clumsy. It's like moving, imagine you're in your home, but you're not home, and you're stumbling through someone else's home in the dark, and you're bumping into furniture. This is not something that you're like, oh, I got it. It's more you've got the scent. Yeah. And there's this book, Antoine and I urgently started trading essays. So it was James Baldwin, it was Cast, it was the 1619 Project, it was White Trash. But most acutely is a book called, and it's a rare book, but I do urge any of you who are interested in American history, it is a book called Without Sanctuary. And it's a photo collection of lynchings in our country, with essays by Baldwin, Frederick Douglass, etc. Many great authors. But there was one phrase within the essays, and it was ruthless matter-of-factness of racism. Ruthless matter-of-factness of racism. So how do we turn the volume down on like, take it out. It's the guy next door. It's just a job. And all you have to do is open the newspaper. All you have to do is turn on the news. And you see ruthless matter-of-factness cropping up all over the world daily. Anti-Semitic violence, racial violence, LGBTQ violence cropping up with hate groups in ways that are nerve-wracking. So Antoine and I had nervy conversations. I know what I look like. I know what I look like. But in another room, I'd just be another Jew. Right? Be another Jew. I'm a lot of things. But to some people, I'm just a Jew. And this is a human being. And I'm not saying one is, I'm just saying human compassion and empathy when we start separating each other into groups and who did what to who. So like, let's ask those questions together in a raw, nervy way, and I'll just ask questions. And Antoine was generous, extraordinarily generous with me, and talking about stuff that hurts. And how do we weave that into a historical film that might resonate today?
It absolutely does. And one, I'm not gonna say one last question, because there'll be lots of questions about your prep work. You mentioned you're a prep guy. I'm wondering, even with that 1 week or so to go until shooting, was there anything you found in your research that helped you to understand the world that would have created this guy? Because I feel like in some ways it's too easy to say, oh, he's just a product of his era, product of the time. Because that's it, obviously, also, but what made and what makes that kind of hatred, of what chisels it to a knife's edge? If there was anything that you came upon, either any readings within the photographs that you saw that kind of, that fine tunes it, because it was obviously, it was everywhere, but there was certain things with guys like this.
Well,
There's a scene in the film where Jim Fassel tells his cohorts why he does what he does. And initially, it was a very he was already a violent man, and a man who had found his racist beliefs. So Antoine and I, in our, and this is the gift of making movies. It's saying like, hey, let's ask nerdy questions together. Saying, well, where does this violence come from? Where does this racism come from? And we're not coming to say like we're gonna fix it or get the answer, but let's talk about it. That's why we go to movies. That's why we open a book. That's why we have conversations with loved ones. What is that? And we got down to fear. And I think it was in James Baldwin's The Fire Next Time, which if you haven't read recently and you don't want to sleep, read it again. And we got down to white fear. And rather than just being the boogeyman, what we wanted to do was find the baby, the child, who had a friend. He had a friend. He snuck her food. And this is not to gain sympathy, but rather to reframe, how does this happen? And if we can hold the thesis in this room tonight for a moment, just for a moment, that we're not born with hate, we're babies. But he learned something from his father and then took it upon himself. So if we can at least touch on that question, then it's worth every day of the 8 months that we shot. It's just to say, can we pose the question? That was my friend. And I had snuck her food when she was hungry, so we rewrote that. And the question of then what? When you're a friend of somebody who's other, who you feel is the same. And to me, at least being able to pose the question is more important than answering it. I'd rather have a good conversation than what you like, figured it out. We're not. But let's have conversations when we go home tonight. Let's have conversations this month. And the holidays, if we're lucky enough to be with loved ones. Just say, yeah. Then what?
And the sequence with the house on fire makes me feel symbolically that it's the fire that's inside of Fassel, but it's a conflagration, and it's just sort of there's no cause. We don't see what caused that fire, but we're sort of watching it burn, or watching it fall apart, watching it destroy the house. Which I think is a beautiful and powerful metaphor. And even within that scene, though, there was when Fassel shoots the other slave hunter that Peter says, you're the worst of the worst. But then, and he sort of does.
You're the worst kind.
Right. And then he sort of does it without a conscience, and then he looks at the dog that's been killed, and there's just that glimmer of sort of sympathy in Fassel's face, and you see the tilting of the ridiculous seesaw of immorality that's in him. And I think it's a powerful, just a glancingly powerful sequence that sort of, says a lot about Fassel in a lot of ways.
I'm not here with answers. We all sense that the world is on fire some days. And I suppose what that sparks is a moment when we were shooting the film. We were halfway through, and Antoine, who's got such, for lack of a better word, presence. He wasn't coming in to shoot the big movie. He was coming in with prayer, for whatever that means to him. His prayer. He said, "I want to show you something," and he had this van with like screens up where you could replay scenes. I said, "I don't want to watch you." He said, "I'm not showing you anything about you. It's not about you." I'm like, "Yeah, I know it's not about me." And it was a scene with Charmaine, plays Will's wife, who I think is just exquisite in this film. Just exquisite. And he just showed me the scene where she's saying goodbye to her kids, or was about to be separated. As a father of two youngsters, our kids are young. I just broke down with the dignity in which she handled her kids. And we just sat there in silence, and he can hold silence. That's a powerful man. Antoine Fuqua is a powerful man. He said, "Yeah." I said, "I'm going to give you the greatest compliment I've ever given. When you're in a movie theater tonight, you're in a movie theater. You sit forward, you sit back, you can just be like, yeah, do that, all those things you do in a movie theater." I looked away. Right? I looked away. She's like looking at her. She's looking at her kid. I figured this out. Not gonna let them go. And I said, we can't look away. We can't look away. And what I believe that Antoine has accomplished and Will's accomplished and Charmaine has accomplished is a reminder that we cannot look away.
We've mentioned the names a few times. Can we have a round of applause, please, for Antoine Fuqua and Will Smith? You and Will had it sounds like it kind of came about naturally. You guys didn't talk much, if at all, during the 6-month shoot. Is that what I understand? That it just sort of happened that, obviously, because of the nature of the characters, as you guys were shooting it in 2021, right? That it was just the way things have naturally came about.
Well, we both have two different stories, so as you do, right? We all have two different stories of an interaction that I came to set, and I'm a fan of Will Smith's. I love Will Smith. I'll say it, and I'll say it again. I love Will Smith. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Will Smith has been around doing the work for a long time in a real way, with love and crossing boundaries that has not been done. And when I walk on set, 360 degrees of what I saw, and I'll take a tangent for a moment. I did the movie, as I brought up earlier, a film called The Survivor, about a concentration camp a man who was in a Jewish man who had to fight his fellow Jews to the death to escape. True story. I made it. Now I'm on the other side of the line, and we have a 360-degree set with 200 plus enslaved reformers. You feel it. And I will say that knowing how I look, knowing the color of my skin, that I've never walked in a room or a space that made me feel so other, so much fear, so much anger. And my job was take it. Not to embitter, but just take it. Listen to it. Take it. So day one, I see Will Smith. You want to say that? And I don't see Will Smith. I see Peter. And I see a man who's going deep in. Like, and I go to my tent. I just stay there. I stayed there for weeks in this tent. I've just seen a man doing the work. However you describe it, like when you see someone doing the work, it can be, we talked about woodworking earlier, you can see someone in church, you can see someone in prayer, you can see someone painting, you can see someone with their kids. But he was in his work. I'm like, I'm going to talk to him. So his story is like, I'm coming out as Will Smith, Ben Foster comes by and he buzzes by me and doesn't talk to me, doesn't acknowledge me for 6 months. And on the last take, I just like we check, box, done. It's like, hey, I'm Ben. Because I'm a fan. Yeah, we didn't need to talk. He was there, I was there, he did the work, and you let it shake out.
And what amazing and phenomenal work it is. The movie is intense and powerful. Words that also describe Will's performance and your performance. Thank you so much for being here.
Charmaine's performance.
And Charmaine's performance, absolutely, yes. And Angela's direction. There is a reception in the lobby. We'll see you guys out there in a moment. But please, a round of applause for Ben Foster. Woo!